Welcome to a super practical workshop where I'm going to be showing you how can you maximize your productivity if you have ADHD and how can you play to your ADHD advantage. In particular, if you're an entrepreneur with ADHD or a leader with ADHD, you are going to find this super helpful because some of the things that I'm going to be showing you, in particular with ChatGPT, you're going to be able to apply them in your work life as well. So let's begin. Who am I and why am I the right guide for you in this journey? I have a master's in business psychology from UCL. I used to be an executive coach before becoming an ADHD coach. I'm a Master Strengths Practitioner, which means I'm really good in seeing the strengths in people and I know the science behind it as well. I'm a master level ADHD coach, meaning I even mentor other ADHD coaches, and I have all the accreditations that come with this. But I think what qualifies me the most to be in front of you today is the fact that I have late diagnosis for my dyslexia and for my ADHD. So I really know how this feels inside out. I know how it feels to be later in life diagnosed with this and not understanding what's wrong with you. But I also know how it feels to understand how your brain works and with the right strategies being put in place, how everything changes. This workshop is me sharing with you without holding anything back the strategies about how to manage the paradox of ADHD. The first stop that we're having is really having a better understanding about how do you process information. And you have a link which will take you to the 8 processing modalities, which are golden. If you're going to ask me as an ADHD coach, what I can tell you is that understanding the processing modalities, the strengths-based approach, and how to build the right scaffolding around you form 80% of managing your ADHD, particularly if you run your own business. So let's begin by understanding what are the processing modalities. I've learned about them at the ADCA school in New York, and I would say it was a game changer for me. It's more than just the way that you learn, it's the way that you form your memories. You can't remember something that you didn't pay attention to in the first place. And the way that things are being communicated to you really help you form that memory. So I'm going to invite you to go quickly through the PDF where we go a bit more extensive, and I'm going to have a very quick stop through all the 8 modalities to help you recognize them, particularly if you like listening to things. But I really want you to not only understand them on an intellectual level, but then process this and see how can you implement things around you that are going to speak your language. I need you to be an advocate for yourself. I need you to not assume that everyone is going to understand this. I need you to have the right language and have the right boundaries and communicate to people what you need, because this is massively going to influence the way that you will retain information. And we know that we definitely benefit from having a strategy for this one. So the first part is understanding. As I said, you have all of this in the PDF, but let's go quickly through them. The first one is auditory processing, meaning you take your information in a verbal format. So probably you like listening to audiobooks, you like listening to podcasts. In meetings, you're not taking notes because you're just listening. If that's you, make sure that you let the people around you know that you're not taking notes. Perhaps you bring Otter AI in the room so it can take notes for you in your Zoom sessions. But other than that, you need to prioritize to listen to things and don't get distracted with other things. If you're the type that process information in a visual way, this means that you like your charts, you like your diagrams, you like your pictures, and you need things probably to be written down. Don't be afraid to say, can you put that in an email for me if that's you? Because it's going to save you a lot of time later because you're not going to remember and what's going to happen. So I really want to encourage you to be an advocate for yourself. The next processing modality, which is one that is very common for us with ADHD, is verbal processing. Probably you've recognized already that as you're raising your hand to put a question and you're able to say the question, you just answered your own question. Or like you really feel that you put your thoughts in order as you are talking to people. I am going to show you how to use ChatGPT in order for you to create less overwhelm in your head, because sometimes there's so many things open in our head, just like you have too many tabs open on your computer and you don't know where the music is singing from. You really benefit from talking it out. Maybe you're going to do it with your journal, maybe you're going to do it with your friend, with a coach, or with assistive technology. The trick is, if this is you, so if you process information verbally, make space for it in your diary. Be your own ambassador. The next one is the kinesthetic processing. Maybe you're the one that fidgets on the chair in the meeting, or you're doodling, or you prefer moving as you are talking to people. You're pacing around the office. If this is you, no problem. Just let the people around you know, because otherwise, if they are not aware about this type of processing modality, they're going to think that it's rude or that it's distracting. What I like to do, when possible, schedule meetings that are outside and go for a walk. Maybe it's going to be face-to-face if you're in the same city, or maybe you're just going to have your Zoom app on your phone and just have the meeting outside as you're walking. It's really going to help you retain the information, or let the people know that you enjoy doodling and that you're going to be able to retain information better. Sometimes people wonder, why am I not taking notes and I'm doodling? Because I also have this kinesthetic processing. And if you have it, it's not a problem, but make sure that you act as an ambassador and you educate the people around you. The next processing modality that we're looking at is the tactile processing. Basically, you use your hands. When you get furniture from IKEA, before you read the instructions, you put your hands on it and you assemble it by yourself. Maybe you look at the instructions if you really got stuck, but the first thing that you're doing is using your hands. If this is you, the more that you could build stuff, the more it's going to help you retain information. Obviously, it depends on the industry that you're working in, but maybe drawing is going to be the second best. So you're still using your hands. You're not typing, you're using your hands. So make sure that you get your hands into action if this is you. The next one is conceptual processing. You like to understand the big picture and the relationship between the ideas. As you're getting a new idea, it needs to connect to something. You like mind maps. And if this is you, make sure that you are going to honor this. And if you are not clear on what people are saying, ask as many questions as you need so you can have the clarity on how this connects to the bigger picture. And then you'll see they're going to have no problem in retrieving information. The last two ones are really important ones. So emotional processing refers to your ability to retain information and to process information through an emotional connection. Meaning, as someone is talking to you, you need to connect with it emotionally in order to remember this. And here's the trick. If you're going to be able to do this for yourself and you run your own business, then this is a double win. Because also people make decisions based on emotion. So if you're going to be able to relate to people in your commercials, in your ads, in the way that you talk to them with emotion, because you already do this for yourself, then truly it's an advantage, because you're not only going to be able to get across to them, but you're also going to be able to see an increase in your profit. The last processing modality is not going to come as a surprise to you, and probably it's in your top 3 if you haven't suppressed it, but it's the intuitive processing. This means that you rely more on your instinct or on your gut feeling. Sometimes you just know. You meet a person and you just know something about them that later on is going to become a reality. Or when you take intuitive decisions, they turn out to be the right decisions. These were the 8 processing modalities, which I invite you to take very seriously, not only for digesting the information that I'm offering in this workshop, but also in your way in interacting with the world. It was a game changer for me, and I have to be very honest that even as a psychologist, I wasn't aware of them. It was only when I got my qualification in ADHD coaching that I understood the importance of this. Because for us with ADHD, we can't remember something that we didn't pay attention to, and the way that we form that memory is heavily reliant in the way that you process information. So if you want to see an increase in the things that you are remembering, make sure that you identify what is your main top 3 processing modalities, and then you do something about it. You don't just understand it on an intellectual level, you process it, and then you implement the changes. The whole workshop is reliant on your ability to understand that ADHD is a paradox. It's dual. It has both pluses and minuses. And what you're going to focus on and how you're going to focus on the things that happen to you make the difference. There's so many studies, so many psychological studies, not just for the people with ADHD, that the things that we focus on, we bring more of that in our reality. In fact, I want to talk to you briefly about the reticular activation system. It's a filter in our brain that acts like a bouncer. Anything that is familiar, this bouncer allows it to come in, and anything that is not familiar, it's going to stay out. Your brain really can't make the difference between good or bad. It can only make the difference between familiar and not familiar. And here's the secret. People with ADHD have a stronger negative bias. As you were growing up, there were a lot of things that you perceived in a negative way. So for you, it's more familiar to have negative emotions. So that's more familiar, meaning the reticular activation system brings more of that in. And that's why in ADHD coaching, the predominant style that we're using is the strengths-based approach, because we know you have a stronger negative bias. We also know that neuroplasticity is real, meaning that we can change the way that your neurons fire together, but it takes a bit of work. So in this workshop today, I'm going to be giving you the tools that I'm using with my clients. I'm also going to appeal to your intuition because I know you're going to be able to understand this, but it's very simple. What you focus on dictates how you're feeling and dictates the decisions that you're making. And obviously, if we're going to focus on more positive things, then the quality of your feelings and your decisions is going to be a higher one compared to if you're going to focus to why does this always happen to me? Why am I always late? Ooh, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm not minimizing the challenges that we have. I'm going to show you how to use ChatGPT to manage some of the deficits that we have from our ADHD, but I need you to take responsibility for this. As I've learned as an ADHD coach, you need to, first of all, increase your self-awareness, and then you need to stay with the process, and it's about doing baby steps in the right direction, and before you know it, you're going to be able to notice some sustainable changes, and that's why we're after the sustainable changes. I have an ebook that I wrote for entrepreneurs. It's called The Entrepreneurial ADHD Advantage. And I want to share with you an extract very quickly. Like, you can download the ebook if you want to see the full list. But basically, there's a big overlap between the ADHD traits and what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. And I want you to focus on the overlap, seeing the overlap, because the more you're going to be able to see the overlap, the more you're going to be able to see the opportunities. So if you're already an entrepreneur, great. See how can you bring more of that into your life. But if you're not an entrepreneur, maybe just start to create those connections. Remember those baby steps that I was telling you about? Creativity and innovation. Am I right saying that sometimes when you need to do things, you do it in a completely different way? Sometimes you even shock the people around you. This is something that is very precious for you as an entrepreneur. The high risk taking and the resilience, this comes from the risk taking is your need for stimulation. So all that impulsivity that you're being criticized for, it translates into high risk taking. As an entrepreneur, you need to take risks because otherwise you're not going to be able to see progress. The resilience that you had to develop throughout your life because you were trying different things and they didn't work for you, that thick skin is also going to come in handy when you're going to be an entrepreneur because things are up and down, up and down. And I think the last one that I want to focus on is the hyperfocus and passion. We're going to be talking about this extensively, but we have an interest-based neurosystem, meaning that when we find something that is interesting to us, we have no problem in concentrating. In fact, we go 10 times faster than the people that don't have ADHD. However, if we don't focus on the things that we like, then we have a lot of challenges. But we'll speak about that in a bit. What I need you to take away from this section is that ADHD is a paradox. You have both pluses and minuses. Let's not hide behind the finger. But what I want you to do is, for the challenges that you have, find the scaffolding to support you. And then all of a sudden, things are going to become much easier, because the things that you're not good at, and the best case scenario, you're just going to be mediocre. You really want to be focusing the majority of your time on the things that get you into hyperfocus. Those things that when you start, you cannot stop. That's how you find your ADHD advantage. I want to invite you to watch a short video, a minute and a bit, by Dr. Russell Barkley at a conference talking about how ADHD looks like.
So I want you to understand that you have a brain. The back part of it is where you learn. The front part is where you do. Knowledge, performance, knowing, doing. And ADHD splits them apart. I don't care what you know, you won't use it. You can be the brightest kid in the world, not going to matter. So you got a real problem on your hands, because you can know stuff and you won't do stuff. That's a serious problem called a performance disorder. So what we know about ADHD is it's going to put all 5 of those levels at risk, because it interferes with all 7 executive functions, and you're going to have time blindness, and you won't be able to aim your behavior toward the future, to care for yourself as effectively as other people are able to do. You have intention deficit disorder. You have a disorder of performance, not knowledge. You know what to do, but can't do it. You have a disorder of the when and the where, not the what and the how. Your problem is not with knowing what to do. It's with doing what you know. What does that mean? It means that all interventions must be out at that place in the environment where you're not doing what you know, to help you show what you know. I have to create scaffolding around you to help you do this. What does this mean for treatment? Teaching skills is inadequate. It won't work. You can sit down with somebody with ADHD and tell them what they need to do. Good luck, right? It's not even going to leave your office. You act like they're stupid. They're not. They know what to do. They know what you're telling them to do, right? They're not going to do it. When they get out there, that information has no controlling value over their life. And it ticks you off. You start to interpret it as a motivational problem. But the only way to deal with executive deficits is to re-engineer the environment around them to help them show what they know. And all treatments must be out there in their life where you have to build that scaffolding.
Re-engineer the environment around them to help them show what they know. A lot of my work as an ADHD coach, this is what I'm doing. For the things that you have to implement, once we get clear on that, it is about not really forcing you to try harder. It's really about finding the right scaffolding for you, the right support. Let's dive into our first strategy for being more productive. In order for you to be able to work with your brain, not against your brain, it's important to understand what stimulates you. And there are 3 key things that stimulate all people with ADHD. It's backed up by research. So everything that I'm about to say is also backed up by research. The first thing, and probably you're doing this quite often, is urgency. That's why you leave things until the very last minute, because urgency is one of the key motivators when it comes for people with ADHD. This is where you can try implementing fake deadlines. But the problem with that is that you know that they're fake, so they don't really work. So you need to put some skin in the game for that. Number 2 is novelty. That's why you buy so many books and courses and you don't even start, or like the new gadget and it just gathers dust on your desk, because novelty really excites us. The way that you could use that in your favor is when you have to do things that are not that stimulating, change the environment, go to a new coffee shop, go to a new place, or change where you sit in the office. Think of ways, how can I bring more novelty in this task in a way to really motivate yourself? The last thing is the most important one, and is the one where I specialize in. So this is where I think that you should spend the majority of your time as well, and I'm going to show you how to do that. But it is interest. When you are doing things that are interesting to you, your brain is stimulated. And not only that it's stimulated, but you're going to be able to go 10 times faster. You're going to be able to be very creative. This is where your true ADHD advantage is. So it's really about having conversations. How can you make things more interesting? I even wrote an article on the Harvard website about how I made writing for me more interesting. As you know, I'm dyslexic, so it's not that interesting, and I had to find a way to make it more interesting for me. This is my own personal journey that I'm sharing with you here. I used to be called Roxana Tașcu before I got married, so that's why you're going to see me under two names. But this is an article that people from Harvard found refreshing when I was talking about how I was able to re-energize writing. And for someone with dyslexia, this was a big deal. And I'm happy to report that even now it's a pleasure for me to write, but it really was about how can I make something that is not interesting to me interesting. And I want to teach you to do the same thing. The next strategy that I want to explain to you is rooted in the I model from ADKA. This is the best school in the world when it comes to ADHD coaching. And this model is so easy to understand and to apply, but you're going to have to do the work. So as you see on the screen, everything that we have here begins with an I. That's why it's called the I model. So we have intention, we have interest, we have ignition, we have inhibition, and we have intuition. So it goes like this. Every time that you set an intention, the first time that you need to check is it interesting? Because if it's not going to be interesting, you're really going to struggle to start to have that ignition. And for this, I like to use an analogy. Let's say that you would set the intention to come and see me in London. I'm based in Primrose Hill. The first thing that you need to do, you will need to check if you have petrol in your car. Because if you're not going to have petrol in your car, we're not going to have ignition. I don't care how important it is or how beautiful your car is. If it's not interesting, you don't have petrol, you're not going to be able to start your car. And this is really, really relevant because sometimes we say that we want to do certain things, but we don't find it interesting. If you're not going to be able to find the interest, you're not going to be able to do it. You're going to procrastinate, you're going to sabotage, it's going to take you 3 times longer. So you really want to spend some time to think, how can you make this interesting? As you probably know by now, we have an interest-based nerve system, meaning that if you're going to find the interest, then you're going to be able to connect the 2 parts of the brain. But if you're not going to be able to do that, you are really going to feel stronger the challenges that come with ADHD. We like to joke to say that Mary Poppins was the first ADHD coach because she understood that any job that must be done, you need to make it fun. The same goes for you as well. For any task that you're going to put on your agenda, you have to find a way to make it more interesting because otherwise you're going against your brain. And this is the last thing that you need to do. So let's have a look at this model one more time. Am I right that when you set an intention and it aligns with your interest, you have no problem in starting? In fact, you have problems in stopping. You forget to eat, you even forget to go to the toilet, you don't want to transition to the new task, not even seeing your friends, and it's all about the interest. So that means that if I could get it down to a science to show you how to find your interest, your productivity can increase, your decision making could become easier, your navigating the business world or your personal life could become easier. So a lot of the challenges that come with the overwhelm or with procrastinating, we can just blow them away. For the next part of the model, I need you to peel your eyes and really notice that we have a plus and a minus here. This means that interest can be positive or negative. Interest is an emotion and it can be a negative emotion or a positive emotion. For example, people that haven't worked on themselves and didn't take serious that they have an interest-based nervous system, they use the negative type of interest, meaning, what are people going to say? I'm afraid I'm going to embarrass people. I'm going to leave things until the very last minute because that's the only thing that stimulates me. The only problem with this is that, sure, for a short journey, like you're able to do that. But what about if you want to go around the world, right? If we're thinking about the analogy with the car, for short distances that's going to be fine, but for long distances, if you're not going to play on your strengths or the things that are interesting to you, you're going to become overwhelmed. You're going to go into burnout, and you want to avoid that. What I like to do and what I'm going to show you in the next phase is how to find the positive type of interest, meaning that you need to find what are the things that really motivate you, what are your strengths, how can you play on your strengths. And that way, when you're going to align the intention with your strengths or like with the key motivators, you're going to be able to start, you're going to be able to stop. There's more to this than that I can explain to you. But for now, the key takeaway that I want you to take with you from this part is that interest is non-negotiable. If you're not going to find the positive type of interest, you're probably going to find the negative type of interest when you need to do things, or you're going to feel the consequences. And that's the last thing that you need to do. So in the next section, I'm going to explain to you how to find the positive interest, so that way you can increase the quality of your life. One of the most effective strategies to become more productive is to play to your strengths. But what is a strength? A strength is something that you do often. It gives you energy every time that you do it, and you have high capability. I think it's really important to say that sometimes people confuse just because they're good at something with a strength. No, there's just high capability. It needs to be both high energy, high frequency, and capability. That is the strength. That's a realized strength. If you don't do it often, then it's an unrealized strength. However, for example, this is very key for you to understand. Let's say you're high in capability when it comes to detail, but you get drained every time that you're doing that. It's not a strength. Maybe from the outside, people are going to think that it's a strength and they're going to compliment you for that, and you're going to get energized by the reward that you're getting, but not from the activity itself. This is so important for you to really understand what are the things that give you energy, because otherwise you are going to procrastinate. Because you have an interest-based nervous system, anything that is not energizing for you, you're going to put aside, and we don't want to do that. So when we're coming back to what Mary Poppins taught us, beside the entertainment, that any job that must be done, you need to make it fun. Basically, you need to hunt the things that give you energy. And the moment that you're going to do that, this is where you're going to be able to get into your hyper-focus zone. Remember how I was explaining that if you're able to match the intention with the interest, we're going to have ignition. Well, your interest is your energy. And in fact, my preferred tool, the one that I used to work for before becoming an ADHD coach, and again, you can see my previous name before I got married, Roxana Tașcu, now I'm Roxana Tașcu, is a tool by Capfinity. It has a lot of scientific rigor behind it. It measures the frequency, it measures the capability and the level of energy. And based on the algorithm that they have put in place, it puts it into 4 quadrants. You get to see the realized strengths, so the things that you perform well, you find them energizing and you use them often. You get to see the learned behaviors. These are things that you perform well. So the same like with the realized strengths, but you find them de-energizing. So those tasks that when you do them, you feel drained after, but people are still happy that you've done them, probably there are learned behaviors. You also get very clear on what are your weaknesses, and these are the things that we don't want to work with. So these are the things that I want to teach you how to use assistive technology. We're going to find that scaffolding, because in the best case scenario, you are going to be mediocre at them. So the majority of your time you want to spend using your realized strength and your unrealized strength. And I know, because you have a stronger negative bias, you're going to be more attracted to your weaknesses, but the whole point of working with an ADHD coach is to make more familiar the things that you are good at. And that's exactly what this tool gives you as a starting point. It really tells you what are the things that energize you. So we're really looking, when we're having conversations, at the energy level. Yes, performance is also important, but energy level, having in mind that you have an interest-based neurosystem, is a game changer. This tool is included in the price if you work with me. But if you want to explore by yourself, I invite you to go over to strengthsprofile.com and choose one of the versions. Or like the free version, you have it in my ebook as well. Like you're able to get a link, and then later on I can upgrade it for you if you want me to. I really recommend for you to take serious the level of energy when you implement strategies in your life, because sometimes we just Google or we have a recommendation from someone, and then we wonder, why does it not work for me and it works for everyone? Well, guess what? If it takes energy away from you rather than gives you energy, the steps that you need to do, of course it's not going to work, because you have an interest-based neurosystem. So it's really, really important to lead with interest, to lead with the things that are interesting to you. And I find this tool a great conversation starter that is anchored in science. Being a psychologist, I like tools that are grounded in science, that are valid, that are reliable. And my personal recommendation is for you to use Strengths Profile by Capfinity for you, for your team, even for your children, if they're over 16, and really look out for that energy piece. That one is a game changer. I think the expert version can be quite overwhelming if you're getting it by yourself, because there's a lot of information. So if you want to go individual, so if you want to go solo, just go for the intro version or the free version, and that will open up your appetite, and then let's see if we can connect. And I'm more than happy to either recommend you to some of the strengths profile facilitators, because there's more of us in my network, or we can work directly. Let me walk you through the steps that I'm suggesting for you to implement if you want to take a strengths-based approach to increase your productivity. As I mentioned to you before, we have an interest-based neurosystem. So the more interest you're going to be able to bring into your life, you will be able to notice the difference. Actually, ADHD is very contextual. The challenges that you're having, if you're going to sprinkle all over interest, they're going to diminish. For example, I had a client one time that she was really struggling with organization, but whenever she was organizing a dinner for her friends, oh my God, the complexity that went into planning was unbelievable. She was able to cook some really complicated dishes. She was able to plan everyone's train journeys. She was able to know when to start cooking various different dishes so they're going to be just right. She was really passionate about it. So having a strong interest really gave her enough energy and enough interest to put in practice some of the things that in other contexts she found very difficult. I'm sure you have a few examples like this yourself. I want to give you a quick tour of the expert profile that you would be getting if you're working with me, either in my mentoring program or in my coaching sessions. So the first page that we have here, you also get in your intro profile. However, for the expert profile, you get to see the full spectrum. You get to see all the 60 strengths. And I love here, you get to see the lifeline. You get to see if this would be the half. Are you losing more energy or are you gaining more energy? So like if we look at the date, this was in the pandemic. So obviously the pandemic was affecting me as well. We were working from home. So a lot of the energy that I got from my colleagues wasn't here. And also it was towards the end of my corporate life. I was starting to have an increased interest into being an entrepreneur. And then obviously you have a personalized report where it tells you each strength, what it means, and then it tells you how to use it. It's really good because it develops your language and your ability to spot strengths both in your life and in the ones around you. So from page 16 and 17, we have the strengths being clustered into families. I particularly like the one from page 16 because I process information visually, so I find it very easy at a glance to understand what's happening. So we have various different families. Basically, they took the 60 strengths and they put them in 5 categories. We have the category of our way of being in the world, the category of how we give and receive information, how we get driven towards action, how we relate to other people around us, and our approach to situations. And what I was able to see working with various different people is that the people with ADHD always proportionally have more weaknesses in their thinking strengths. So this is mine for 2020, and I also anonymized one from my client to be able to show you this. So yes, we get to have like different weaknesses in different categories, and it looks different for different people, but every time I'm working with someone with ADHD, the thinking category is being highly impacted. And I think this is very precious information. And in the next section, I want to show you how can we bring in the right type of scaffolding in order for you to be able to bypass the challenges, the shame that comes with the challenges from the thinking family. So in the next section, I'm particularly going to address the thinking strengths that are being impacted because of our ADHD. I'm talking about our ability to get organized, our ability to plan, our ability to prioritize, break things down, and I'm also going to show you ways that you can use assistive technology as a way to not feel overwhelmed, because sometimes we have so many things spinning in our head that it's the equivalent of having too many tabs open on your computer and you don't know where the music is singing from. So I'm going to be very respectful of the processing modalities that we spoke at the beginning of the workshop, and I'm going to show you how we live in the best day and age for assistive technology to help us with the main challenges when it comes to our ADHD. I'm a big fan of assistive technology. I use Otter AI, I use Heyday, I use GPT, and in fact, I trained a Roxana GPT to know a lot about ADHD management. I find that the general GPT doesn't really understand the condition of ADHD. So Roxana GPT, you can get it together with the ebook that you can find on my website. It also has all the ebook inside the GPT. So if you don't like reading page by page, you can just ask Roxana GPT. She's going to be able to tell you that, and even more than that. She knows about the processing modalities. She knows about the strengths-based approach. She knows about time blindness. And obviously, it's still a robot, so sometimes it hallucinates, but the fact that the window of context is very much anchored in the way that I work with my clients and the information that I gave is really on point and is aimed to support you to manage your ADHD, I think you're truly going to find that it's different compared to the normal GPT. I think in particular, one of the things that I'm very proud of is the way that it gives you the output. Personally, for me, if it's a lot of text and it's a lot of bulk text, I'm not able to use that in any shape or form. So I trained her to give you information in bullet point format or with numbers to break things down, because we need to have special dividers. For me, I read diagonal, so it's really important to be able to navigate the text and understand what is relevant and what is not relevant, because otherwise I get bored. And probably you can relate to this if you also have dyslexia. So let's get into the live demonstration of using ChatGPT to manage your ADHD. If you've used ChatGPT before, you know that the quality of the output is highly dependent on the context and on the prompt. So prompt engineering is really something that you have to take seriously. If you're going to be using Roxana GPT, which is included in the ebook, then it's already going to have the context about what is ADHD, what is the strengths-based method, what are the processing modalities, how can I play on my strengths, what is an interest-based nervous system. So it already has a bigger context of knowledge when it comes to ADHD compared to the general GPT, which I think is still a baby and it still has a lot to learn. Don't worry, you can still use the general GPT, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Building on the previous point, that I was making, that people with ADHD tend to be more impacted in their thinking strengths, I think that we live in the best day and age where we have AI that can support us. Building on the previous point that people with ADHD are more impacted when it comes to their thinking strengths, I really want us to see how can we use ChatGPT to support us in better organizing our thoughts, prioritizing the things that we need to do, get rid of the overwhelm, maybe even help us plan something. And in the short time that we have together, I'm going to aim to give you quite a lot of information. Obviously, it's all about the prompt engineering, so feel free to steal the way that I'm approaching the situation. I'm going to give you various different case studies. I'm going to ask it to help us create a meal plan, which is one of the ADHD challenges, particularly when you're on the go. I'm going to show you how it can help you respond to emails, even if you have sensitive information. I'm going to show you how it can act like a senior executive assistant and handle delicate situation. And I'm also going to show you how it can organize the chaos in your brain. So without any delay, let's begin. But I want to tell you a few important things before we do that. So because I'm dyslexic, my processing modality heavily relies on verbal processing and visual processing. So you'll see me in my demonstration dictating to ChatGPT what I want to say, and you'll see that I'm making mistakes and it's still going to be able to understand. But then for the output, I'm going to be really specific how I want it to look so I can better process it. Sometimes when it gives me emails and it's big chunks of text, I don't even know what it's saying in my emails, and that's the last thing that you want. Let's start with creating a plan. It can be a monthly plan, a weekly plan, a yearly plan. I would go small, if I'm honest, and building on that. It can even do templates for you. But I think what's really important for you to understand is that you can't give it too many things at the same time. Similar, like we go into ADHD paralysis when there are too many decisions that we have to take at the same time. We need to go layer by layer. So first, we need to spend time in setting the context. Whatever you're going to need to plan later, you need to think of a person that you want ChatGPT to act as, and then give it instructions and first educate it about the subject. Once you are educated about that, or maybe you have the knowledge yourself, and in that case you're going to dictate it, then and only then you start to organize it. Or maybe you're going to copy paste from a document and you're going to ask for the information to be organized. I want to show you a very simple way to organize. So let's start with the first case study that we're doing, which is for meal planning, which is something very common for us with ADHD. So let me start by setting the context, educating almost like the parameters that we need to work with. I have ADHD and I would like to get your support in deciding what I want to eat. I would like you to act like a chef that specializes in cooking for people with ADHD and give me a long list of type of dishes that I could be having so I could choose from as inspiration. If I would give it too many things at the same time, it would take you all over the place. So exactly like you would do with your own, you need to start small. First, you need to do the first layer, right? It's really about understanding what you want to eat in the first place. So now I'm going to be fussy and I'm not even reading what it said, but I'm not going to like it. So I'm going to challenge it to give me even more information that is more relevant for me. And this is just a demonstration that you could do the same. So if you don't like the output, but then you're going to have to be specific what you don't like about it. Yes, it can guess, but it's really going to give you a better output if you're going to give more criteria. So check this out. I don't like any of the suggestions that you're giving. I want something with more flavor, something more interesting. Otherwise, this is boring. So it has more context. And then obviously it's going a bit too fancy right now. Shashuka. I wish I would know how to cook that. But let's say that we like these ones. The next step, I need to decide, do I want to create a schedule already, or do I want to create the recipes? So I think let's go for creating a schedule, because the recipes, you're going to have to Google them. As you know, ChatGPT sometimes hallucinates. So let's go with creating a plan. I would like you to create a meal plan for the week, and I would like you to even include when I will do the shopping. I would like you to put this in a table in order for me to easily be able to follow what I need to do when. You can do this with social media as well. So once you know your pillars and once you know what you want to focus on, you just ask it to put it in a table. My favorite format for me as a visual processor is to ask it to put it in a table. So it even gives you like the basic indications when you should be marinating the things. I could get it now more complicated and say I'm a vegetarian. I forgot about that, but yeah, do that. Um, but we're just going to be nice now. It even gives you like the shopping list separately. We can put that in a table. Please give me the shopping list per day in a table as well so I can follow it easier. And there you go. We are able to have everything in a list. It is worth to double check, because although the accuracy is much greater than if you would do this table yourself, I think sometimes it just loses the context, or maybe we weren't as clear as we thought that we were, and it goes in a different direction. The next strategy that I will demonstrate to you using AI is how to respond to emails and be more efficient. Have almost like a secretary writing up the email for you. For that, I generated a mock email of someone seeking help for ADHD challenges. Sometimes I have people requesting information about ADHD at the same time as they're asking information about the way that I work. And particularly when I'm being very busy, it's really hard to write an educational email. And I really don't want to write like templates, because I really like to have a personalized approach to that. So what I tend to do is I dictate the email. So let's quickly see what the email is. So, my child and I have ADHD, and I like the type of work you are doing. The challenges we're having is that we procrastinate all the time. I would like to know what type of approaches you suggest. I'm not sure if I'm able to afford coaching at this point. Is there anything that you can offer? Additionally, I would like to understand what coaching would involve and how you can help me. Please, can you also tell me about the type of results that I can expect? So, a lot of questions, and this happens a lot. People ask me a lot of the questions, and obviously, as I run my own business, I need to make sure that I give a comprehensive response to this. So look at the prompt that I'm giving before, and then look what I'm going to do after. In a second, I'm going to share an email where there's a potential client that is asking me about ADHD and procrastination, and also the type of work that I'm doing. I would like you to educate about the different types of procrastination and where it comes from, and how we have an interest-based nervous system. So finding something that they love is probably going to ignite their brain, and it's going to work better for them. And if she's interested about the type of results that she can have with coaching, it's really important to manage her expectations, that there isn't a one size fits all. I will need to get clear on the type of challenges that she's having, and on the back of that, we would be able to see what works for her. Tell her that the minimum package that I accept is 6 sessions, and if she's going for the pack of 12 sessions, she's going to be able to get the strengths profile included in the price. Here is the email that I would like you to respond as if a senior executive understood what she needs to do in order to both come across as helpful and educate at a point of need, but also be very clear on the logistics. The aim for this is to move things forward. I don't know if you were able to pick on all the elements that I included in here, but basically it doesn't know a lot about me. I mean, in this case, I would say that it's an interesting list of procrastination that it's giving us. The ADCA school would disagree. This is what I'm saying. The ChatGPT general doesn't have like a full understanding about ADHD. It's quite general, and it's not that good. I mean, what I could have done is obviously copy paste from my website about me or about my approaches in order to give it more relevant context. But for now, I just wanted to demonstrate, right? Like how I can write a very long email. So in fact, I'm going to say that it needs to be shorter. Please, can you rewrite this? It feels very overwhelming. You need to talk about complex things in a simple way, and you need to be more compact. It needs to be more approachable, and it needs to be in simple language, easy to relate. Oops, I didn't finish that. They're still going to understand. And then you play with it. Like sometimes it's good just to have the structure. And I'm going to let you in on a secret. I've built a mentoring program and I've used ChatGPT to enhance the clarity. I had so many concepts that I played around with. In fact, let me show you. It is my mentoring program that it is for entrepreneurs with ADHD. And I wanted to include so many things, but I just didn't know how to make this clear. So I knew that I want to use Simon Sinek, like Find Your Why. I knew that I wanted to use assistive technology to build a second brain. And I knew that I wanted to build a community. But all the titles that went underneath and saying this in a really clear and concise way, although they were my ideas and the business value that it brings, this is where I heavily leaned on ChatGPT. And yes, it was a lot of back and forward. But for someone with dyslexia that doesn't find it as easy to write as it finds it to talk, and I verbal process, so a lot of the times as I talk, I get better ideas, it was fantastic. So if you're building any type of programs, I'm really inviting you to really think how can ChatGPT can bring more structure, more clarity, and please, please, please don't ask it to act like an expert because you are a better expert than ChatGPT at this point. The information is very general. Okay, so let's move on and take a different case study. This time, let's ask it to do the heavy lifting for us for a heavy conversation, for a difficult conversation. So I have here another email that I want to use, which is someone asking for a payment extension for 6 months, but still wanting to continue to work with me. So as this is a coaching service and a mentoring service, it means that I normally take the payment up front, and when people stop paying, I no longer work with them. So sometimes I get this kind of emails as well. And obviously for me, the relationship is very important, and I need to make sure that I don't spend like too much time and overthink what I'm going to say, although this is obviously just the start of the email, and then I make sure that it's in my own language, and you'll do the same. I have a delicate situation. I am an ADHD coach where I normally ask for payment upfront, and I have someone that is asking me to delay the payment but continue working with me. I want to have a really kind language, simple language, but assertively communicate my boundaries. Yes, show a gesture of goodwill, but nevertheless, write an email that will protect me as a coach and my time. I would like you to act as if a senior executive assistant that fully understands the dynamic and wants to encourage a positive relationship would be able to advise me how to write this email. I would like the email to feel very human, and I would like the email to be encouraging, but at the same time, communicate the standards in a kind way. Really assume that the person doesn't understand what they're asking and educate them about the service of coaching. This is the email. So let's see. It is quite a long brief, and it's much easier if you're talking like this. From the first, I'm not able to read what's here. Like it's like so much text. I'm not able to read my own email. So I find it hard to read the email. Please, can you make it more ADHD friendly, meaning put things in bold that are important, include bullet points, include next steps, in order for the email to, first of all, be clear, but also kind. Let's see if it's going to make an improvement. It's thinking. Still more text than I would have liked, but I think this is good. I'm liking this much more. I understand from a glance what's happening in this email. Obviously, this is just play pretend, so I'm going to invite you to use it in your real life, but really be mindful of the sensitive information. So delete the names out, delete any sensitive information that you don't want to put into ChatGPT. I have people that have really high up jobs and use ChatGPT. However, they're not able to fully copy paste the emails or the information. They need to anonymize it first. And what they tend to do, because they're not allowed to have ChatGPT on their laptop, they bring in their iPad and they purely use it to organize their thoughts or to tell them, I'm in this dynamic, it's a difficult situation. How would a senior executive assistant that has experience would approach this type of situation? So it's purely acting like a place to verbal process, first of all, but also bounce off ideas. Because as you're reading the things that ChatGPT is suggesting for you, you're able to decide if this is the right thing for you or not. And not all the time it gives you something that is relevant, but every time it's going to stimulate you, and if you're going to stick with it, you're going to be able to find something. The final example that I will be demonstrating in this workshop is in regards to you feeling overwhelmed when you have so many things and you don't even know where to start. Sometimes there's so many things going on in our head, but if we haven't processed it, we don't even know that that's what's bugging us. We think, yes, we're going to remember. And actually, we think it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. So I am going to do something that I ask my clients to do all the time, which is to create a brain dump. Once you're going to have this brain dump, then I'm going to ask ChatGPT to organize it for me, to put it in different categories. And here we go. In fact, what I've done, I've asked it to produce some text, as people with ADHD sometimes talk, everything at the same time. It's overwhelming just to look at that list, right? So I need to finish a client report by Friday. I need to take the kids to school. I need to set up a study schedule for the PhD entrance exam. Creating a new budget plan for the household expenses is urgent, right? So like a lot. Basically, when I have this in my ADHD coaching sessions, I just copy paste the transcript. I ask them, tell me everything that you need to do, and then we put it into ChatGPT and we do what I'm about to show you. So let me show you the prompt. I have ADHD and I'm feeling overwhelmed by everything that I need to do. I want to share with you a brain dump of everything that is going on in my mind, and I would like you to produce a list divided by categories. For each category, I would like you to give me the task underneath in a way that I'm going to be able to execute it from the first minute. I would like you to act like a professional organizer that understands the challenges of ADHD and understands that I can get overwhelmed. So you need to get just the right amount of detail, not to overwhelm me, but also for me to know what I need to do. And I just gave the long list. So let's see. And sometimes when you look at that list, you just breathe easy. It's so much easier, at least for me, to see them in bullet points, and like you understand the categories, and you're able to prioritize them after. And actually, to prioritize, you need to set criteria. But ChatGPT is not going to know what the criteria is. So we're going to define that. Please ask me 3 key questions for you to identify what are the main criteria so we can start prioritizing. I'm always asking you to ask me questions before I'm going to tell it to do something, because otherwise it's just not going to work. Which tasks have the nearest deadline and most time sensitive? Which tasks, if completed, have the most significant impact in your personal life? La la la. Oh, I'm going to have to read now the output to be able to answer this. Which tasks require the least amount of time or resources to complete? Okay, let's choose something. The administrative tasks are the ones that have the biggest impact because they create a chain effect. The most rewarding and I enjoy the most is the marketing, but I don't have that much time. And the ones that are most urgent are the ones related to my family. And there you go. Obviously, this is a fake list, so it's not going to be as good as one that is yours. My observations is that my observations are that people get quite shocked of the ability to simplify what's going on in their head. And if you take it like in a list like this, it's just so much easier. And once you have things in a list like this one, it's much easier to understand what you need to do. I'm going to ask you to remove when to do it and just create the list in the order of importance, and I'm going to do it when I need to do it. But right now, the list is very overwhelming, and I need you to find a way to be more compact. So I would have everything in one place, what needs to be done, but please can you prioritize them? Basically, what I'm demonstrating is that you can play with the prompts. Normally, I do this as part of the ADHD coaching session, so I'm hoping that I am not overwhelming you by giving you so much information. But if you're already playing with a ChatGPT, you're probably finding this quite similar to how you're using it for your business or for other things. The only difference is that I'm using it for ADHD management, not for creating content, not for getting ideas, because in fact, being creative is one of your advantages. Like ChatGPT is not going to be as good as you are when it comes to creating things. So let's be real about that. And this brings us to the end of the workshop that we had today on how to be more productive when you have ADHD. If I was to sum it up, I would say play to your ADHD advantages, find your strengths. And for the things that are not your strengths, find the scaffolding, find the things that are useful for you to provide support. We looked at AI powered moves that you can implement in your day-to-day life, and we also looked at the processing modality. One important thing that I want to say is please don't get overwhelmed. There was a lot of information that came at you. I wanted to give you a preview of the type of work that I'm doing within my coaching sessions and in my mentoring program, so you would be able to recognize if we are a great fit. And if you feel that you resonated with the type of things that I discussed, then I invite you to come to my website. So it's adhd-advantage.com. I believe that ADHD is an advantage, so even my brand is going in that direction. And the first thing that I'm going to ask you to do is to complete a form and basically say, where are you in your journey? Are you diagnosed with ADHD, or are you just exploring that? What are the current challenges that you're facing? And what are the obstacles in your own words? And then the next page is going to take you to my calendar, where you are going to be able to schedule a discovery session with me to see if we're a great fit. I offer two main services: ADHD coaching, which mainly is for access to work, and we take packages of 6 sessions or 12 sessions. Or for entrepreneurs, I have a mentoring program that also has the community element at the heart of it. It's really thinking not only about how you can manage your ADHD, but it's really about playing to your ADHD advantage. And I would say that a lot of the things that we discussed here today are included in the program. So step number 1 is a lot about finding your strengths, finding your vision, finding your motivation, because we have an interest-based neurosystem, so it's at the core of everything that we're doing. Step number 2 is about building a second brain. Yes, it is about using assistive technology, so I'm going to give you prompts, I'm going to give you examples, less freestyle than it was today, more applied to your journey. And then technically, once you've done step 1 and 2, you don't need me anymore, but I'm still going to keep you around because I know that you benefit from someone holding you accountable. And in fact, I'm going to connect you to the wider network of entrepreneurs that also are on the same journey with you. That is precious, like finding your tribe, finding other people that go through the same thing as you do, both with the pluses and the minuses. You can't put a price on that. It's fantastic. I discovered it by chance, and it's something that I'm keeping as part of my services for as long as I can, particularly because we're doing this online, so we're able to work with people from all over the world. If you process information by reading, so if you process conceptual information, I invite you to download the ebook, which is particularly written for entrepreneurs, but also for the ones that have an entrepreneurial spirit. And that's it. I'm looking forward to meeting you and to work with you and to have this a conversation, not just a monologue. I am passionate about talking about ADHD, but I'm even more passionate when I'm able to apply that directly into sessions. I'm Roxana Tașcu. I am an ADHD coach, business psychologist that is rooting for you to find the advantages in your life, to get better organized, but in a way that is ADHD friendly, that is working with your brain, not against your brain, because there's nothing wrong with you. You're different and you don't have to change. Just the scaffolding around you needs to change. And the moment that you're going to understand that, I promise you, your life is going to look very different. And whilst you're able to pretend that you have it all together because of the ADHD masking, I know the stress, I know the overwhelm, I know the guilt, I know the shame that you're actually carrying with you and how you're hiding behind the finger. And I'm telling you, it doesn't have to be that way. The biggest contributor to your ADHD management is psychoeducation. So first of all, understanding how your ADHD is impacting you. But then it's also about putting the theory into action, because if you would only go to the gym and watch other people, how they're working out, you wouldn't see any difference. The trick is that you have to do the exercises. The same goes with what I presented here today in the workshop. You have to put them in action in order for you to be able to see the results. I can't wait to do that together with you. Ciao.